This is the last topic on geometry. This comes from section 5.10. They kind of label it terrible. So it's chapter 5, section 10, and it's about circles. And there are two formulas we need to know for circles. One is the circumference. Circumference is a fancy way of saying perimeter. When we're referring to a circle, instead of calling it perimeter, we call it a circumference. But what it is the distance around the edge of the circle, just like for any other figure, the distance around. So circumference has two different formulas. One of them is 2 pi r, we'll talk about pi in just a minute, or pi times d. R stands for radius, d stands for diameter, and we'll talk about those two measurements. This special number pi, this is a Greek letter, so that is a Greek letter pi, it's just pi. It is a special ratio for circles. I'm not going to get into the details of it. It is a special ratio for circles. If you want to know more about it, it explains it more in your textbook. All we need to know is that pi is a number that's approximately 3.14. Again, it's a ratio of how circles are developed. And so for us, we just need to know that this symbol is the pi symbol, and then it's approximately 3.14. On your little calculator, you might have the pi symbol. So my little calculator, you can see the pi symbol. If you push it, it gives you the exact value for pi, and this value continues forever. But you'll notice the first three digits, 3.14, which is why we approximate 3.14. On the bigger calculators, it is right below the clear button, and again it's written above the button in blue. So if you hit second and then push the pi button, that glare, and then you hit enter, again it will tell you how many decimals pi has. It actually never ends. We're just going to round it off to 3.14, and it will tell you that on your homework and on your test to round to 3.14. So we're going to use 3.14 when we see the pi symbol. All right. So R and D, you're going to see both of those. R stands for radius. R stands for radius. And that is the distance from the center of the circle to just one side. That is called the radius. From the center of the circle to one side. So it's halfway across the circle. Then you have another measurement called the diameter. Diameter is the distance all the way across the circle. That is the diameter. When you buy wheels for your car or tires for your car, I believe it measures all the way across the diameter of the wheel or the diameter of the tire. So radius is halfway across, diameter is all the way across. So again, two different ways. It's the same, because 2 times the radius is the same thing as the diameter, but we'll get into that in just a minute. Then the other formula is for area. Area of a circle is pi, so again that number 3.14, r squared, so the radius squared. So pi r squared for the area, 2 pi r, or pi times diameter for circumference. So for each of these examples, we're going to find the circumference and the area. You will again need your calculator, the little one or the big one, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to use the little one because it's easier to see. Alright, so these, again, pretty straightforward, following a formula. You will have these formulas for your exam. It is nothing tricky. It is just practicing using a formula. So on this first example, we have halfway across. So this 7 is our radius. So the circumference is 2 pi r. So that's going to be 2 times 3.14 times the radius, which is 7. We can actually type all of that in at the same time. 2 times 3.14 times 7. And then it says round to the nearest hundredth, which is usually already done for you. It's 43.96, and it's being measured in feet. So the circumference of this circle is 43.96 feet. That means if I start at a point and walk all the way around the circle, walk, and get back to the beginning, that is how far I will have walked. Area is just like it was for the other figures. Area, sorry, I squished that. Area is the distance or the space inside the circle. So if I was to fill this in with carpeting or paint or concrete, whatever, if I was to fill in the space on the inside, that's the area. And that's pi r squared. Now remember the order of operations. We have to square first. So be careful on this. Students will mess this up because they type in pi r and then push the squared button, but that's going to square everything. The only thing we want squared is the radius. So you're going to type in the radius first, 7. Then you're going to square it. Then multiply by pi, so it's a little backwards. If you did that right, you should get an area of 153.86. Watch what happens if I do 3.14 times 7 and then I square. My answer is much bigger. So we're not squaring the whole thing, we're only squaring the radius. And remember the order of operations. Exponents go first, multiplying and dividing go after that. So the squared is an exponent, and then the pi is being multiplied. So you square and then multiply. So my area is 153.86, and it's going to be measured in square feet because area is always, the units are always squared. Alright, let's try the next one here. Divide this off so I don't run myself out of space. Circumference is 2 pi r. 2 times 3.14 times 11.5, and again you can just type all that in just like that. 2 times 3.14 times 11.5. I get 72.22, and it's being measured in centimeters. That's the distance all the way around the circle. And then area is pi r squared. So take your radius first, 11.5, square it, and then multiply by pi, 3.14. You should get 415, you're going to have to round that to 0.27 square centimeters. So we get 0.265, the 5 rounds the 6 to a 7. So 415.27 square centimeters. And that is the distance, or the space, inside the circle. So it's just plugging into a formula. Students usually find this very straightforward. The bottom two examples, instead of giving you a radius, it gives you a diameter. So it's giving you the distance all the way across the circle. We want the distance halfway. So half of 28 would be 14 meters. So for circumference, you could use pi times diameter, which would be 3.14 times 28. You can also use 2 times pi times the radius, because 2 times 14 gives you 28. So those are the same. You'll get the same answer if you do 2 times 3.14 times 14. 87.92. You get the same thing if you do 3.14 times 28. So it's 87.92 meters if you were to go all the way around the edge of the circle. But it's always important, if it gives you the diameter, immediately find the radius, because we have to have the radius for area. There's only one formula for area, and it requires the radius. So I always just immediately, if I have a diameter, I immediately cut that number in half and get my radius. So area is pi r squared. Remember we said to do the r squared first, so 14 squared times 3.14. That should give you 615.44, and it's going to be measured in square meters. And again, that is the space inside the circle. Let's look at this last one. It gives you the diameter, 35. So right away, cut that in half. 35 divided by 2 is 17.5. So you immediately want to get your radius so that you don't forget later. So circumference, I just keep to the same formula, 2 pi r. So that'd be 2 times 3.14 times 17.5. Which gives you 109.9 yards. That's the distance if I walked around the circle. And then the area is the space inside the circle. And that's pi r squared. So r is 17.5, so 17.5 squared times 3.14. So square first was the big number, 961.63 square yards. So again, you get 0.625, the 5 rounds the 2 to a 3. So 961 square yards. So perimeters, or circumference is like perimeter. Area is just the same as it was. Circumference is the distance around the circle. Area is the space inside the circle. And it's really just typing those numbers into your calculator. So I would say circumference and area of circles is, again, relatively straightforward. You're just plugging into a formula. You don't have to memorize either of these. They are both on your formula chart.